Border correspondent Ali Bradley live in Del Rio. We have perspective on all of this. Jeh Johnson joins us now here in New York, served as Secretary of Homeland Security in the Obama administration. Welcome back, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you.
You have any thoughts before we get into all of this on what the president just did, declassifying these files related to the Kennedy assassinations and Dr. King? Any thoughts?
Well, when it comes to the files that remain classified, I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
There's a reason why after almost 60 years, more than 60 years, 2% of these files remain classified. Educated guess is we're protecting the identity of some sources of information. I have no idea.
Even after all this time? Or a method?
For some reason, after all these times. This comes up periodically, and our government has continued to make the decision to keep some small portion of this classified. I will agree that our government tends to overclassify things. It's way too easy to classify something, very difficult to declassify something. I suspect that if there was something really interesting in there, it would have leaked by now. So, I think it's a good idea that we're doing this finally. That's my hunch.
All right, and we'll all get a chance to see it whenever it.
I do have another general comment. I don't understand the push to issue so many executive orders just within the first 48 hours of this presidency.
It's the flood the zone concept.
Flood the zone, but the problem is these things are drafted by transition teams who are not government officials, and there's very little opportunity to actually interface with the agency or the department that's going to have to implement this. There's no cabinet secretary confirmed at this point. You have a bunch of actings. And so I know from personal experience, there's a strong push. I've been through 3 transitions. There's a strong push to get out there, show action, issue executive orders. And then you find out when you talk to the bureaucrats, well, maybe this wasn't such a good idea to do it this way. Maybe we need to slow this down.
And there are legal challenges, which the president found out about today. But I was saying earlier that I don't think that would surprise anyone that the birthright citizenship order was struck down in the courts. What did I mean? You're a lawyer. Everyone seemed to expect that.
The judge in the case said this is probably the easiest question I've ever been presented with.
Reagan appointee, I believe, the federal judge in Seattle. So.
Yes, the 14th Amendment, enacted in 1868, to guarantee citizenship to my enslaved ancestors, says if you're born in this country, you're naturalized in this country, and you are subject to the jurisdiction thereof, you are a citizen.
And there was no other reading on that, no alternative reading.
The subject to the jurisdiction thereof has meant that if you are the child of diplomats, you are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. That's how that phrase has been interpreted for over 100 years. And so President Trump's attitude seems to be, oh, you say it's unconstitutional? Well, if you don't like it, sue me and we'll see what the courts do.
Yeah, but in the meantime, to your point earlier, he has a bunch of other executive orders that he has put forward and probably will go forward. He's using the military on the border, all of this kind of thing. So big picture, it's not even a week in. What would you say about this president on the immigration subject? I was thinking earlier, remember back in your administration when President Obama was called the deporter-in-chief by some people?
I was there, yes.
And now what?
Right. Look, these targeted enforcement actions, I've directed them myself. I've told ICE, we need to have targeted enforcement actions. This is not new. For all we know, there were targeted enforcement actions going on last week in Joe Biden's last week in president, but this president is making a much bigger deal out of it. And the reason they are making a big deal out of it is to send a message, frankly, a deterrent message. I am quite sure that the numbers of crossings that have been low are going to fall even further because people south of us see that we're taking these steps. But the point I always make is that so long as the underlying push factors exist in Central America, Venezuela, Cuba, Haiti, the numbers always revert back to their longer-term trend lines, so long as we do not deal with the underlying push factors, which always overwhelm any defense you can put up on the southern.
Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.